Good day everyone. So in this chapter, we will be talking about foreign direct investment, privatization, and insolvency regimes.
So for our learning objectives, we have first defined foreign direct investments. Second, identify the types of FDI. Third, show what the Philippines government is doing to attract FDI. Fourth, enumerate and explain the key features of a favorable investment climate. Fifth, we have explained the idea of privatization. Sixth, understand the different arguments for and against privatization. Seventh, explain the concept of insolvency. Eighth, understand insolvency law and illustrate how the rehabilitation is done. And lastly, discuss the openness to and restrictions upon foreign direct investment of the GPH.
So, foreign direct investment. It refers to the direct investment in productive assets by the company incorporated or unincorporated in foreign country to the host country. So, foreign direct investment or FDI has grown steadily in volume and is major source of development finance. So, it means that FDI is when a company from other country invests directly in the productive assets like factories or offices in other country. In the case of the Philippines, they made it easier for foreign companies to invest there by loosening up their policies and offering incentive to attract more investments. So, FDI is important because it brings in money from the other countries, which can help boost the economy and create more job opportunities. Plus, when foreign companies set up shop in a country, it can have positive effects on local businesses and industries. So basically, FDI is seen as good thing for the Philippines because it helps with economic growth and development. Foreign direct investment in developing countries. Increasing foreign investment can be one of the indicators that the host country's economy is growing in general, opening its window on globalization. Multinational enterprises undertakes production in different countries to minimize production costs and expand globally. So, foreign direct investment or FDI in developing countries means big companies from other places are investing money there. It shows the country's economy is growing and becoming more global. These companies to do it to save money and sell more stuff worldwide. So basically, more FDI will result good news for the developing country.
There are four types of FDI. Number 1, resource seeking. Number 2, important substituting. Number 3, export platform. Number 4, rationalized or vertically disintegrated. And resource seeking is involved seeking access to cheap raw materials, labor, and infrastructure, exchange competitiveness, achieve economics of lower production costs. And number 2, import substituting. Policy aims to boost the domestic production by replacing foreign imports with domestically produced goods and replacing to the country economics landscape and reducing the reliance foreign products. Dito naman ang isang strategy na kung saan ay pinapalakas nila ang local production in a way na tinikilik nila ang foreigners sa local production, their pagtangkilik nila sa import products. Number 3, import platform. Model focuses on the producing final goods using labor without fixed exporting costs. Determine the whatever enterprises platform function, substitution, and complements in global markets. Nakatuon ang final goods kung saan ay walang fixed cost sa sa pag-export nito. Number 4, rationalized or vertically designated strategy entails the company direct ownership or viruses product and stage operate reducing reliance and external supplies and contractors. Strategy na ginagamit para mas mabilis ang production and para mas mataas ang efficiency and control when it comes to productions. FDA policy shift in the 1860s and FDA performance FDA policy shift in the 1960s. In the last 2 decades, the Philippines has the considerably liberalized the foreign direct investments policy virus investments incentive measures were granted through different investments regimes over the past 20 years. The country has a significant relaxed and policy regarding the foreign direct investments. This meaning the government has made it easier for foreign investors to invest the Philippines by reducing restrictions of the offering the this is effective were provided through different investments regimes of systems set by the government to attract the foreign investment. FDI performance. FDI performance, the 1980s witnessed the FDI inflows, but with the liberation efforts in the early 1990s, steady increase in FDI inflows were registered from 1891 to 1991 to 1994, while the investments policy reforms the openings of the more sectors to foreign investors to past decades result in improvements in FDI inflows. The country FDI inflows to the Philippines have been limited, and the country's FDI performance has the behind the neighbors in East and Southeast Asia. FDI performance refer to the trends level of foreign direct investment FDI inflows into the country over the specific period. That's all. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Siti Aiza Caron. Now let's proceed to the key features of the investment climate. So here is the summary of the major factor that influence firms' decision to locate their investment in any particular developing country. So first is the access to finance and international integration. Firms seek countries with accessible financial resources and strong ties to global economy, providing capital for growth and opportunity for trade. Next is the governance. Good governance, including transparency and consistent regulations, ensure a stable environment for protecting investment and operating efficiently. Next is the infrastructure. Reliable infrastructure such as transportation, communication, and utilities support efficient business operation and reduce costs. Next is the skilled labor force. Access to the skilled workforce helps firms maintain quality and productivity, benefiting from strong education and training programs. Next is the macroeconomic factors. Economic stability and growth potential in terms of controlled inflation, manageable debt, and large market attracts firms for investment opportunities. Next is the political stability. A stable political environment minimizes risk of sudden policy changes and disruption to business operation. And last is the technology factor. Access to the advanced technologies and a support ecosystem for research and innovation gives firms a competitive edge. So with these factors, create a favorable investment climate that helps firms make informed decisions about locating investment in developing countries, ultimately benefiting both the firms and host countries' economic development. Now let's proceed to privatization. Privatization is the transfer of ownership and control of a business, agency, or public service from the public sector to the private sector. It includes essential services like power, water, transportation, revenue collection, and even law enforcement and prisons in some advanced countries. Privatization aims to increase efficiency and introduce competition, but it must be managed carefully to protect public interest and ensure service quality. Next is the pro-privatization. Proponents of privatization argue that private entities can deliver goods and services more efficiently than the government due to a free market competition. This competition drives the companies to innovate, lower prices, and improve quality to attract customers. Privatization can result in more options, less corruption, and faster service delivery, benefiting customer and the economy overall. Next is the anti-privatization. Opponents of privatization argue that government-owned enterprises should remain under public control because government are accountable to the people. This accountability encourages responsible management and prioritize public needs over profit. Since government are subject to public scrutiny, they are more likely to ensure that state-owned enterprises operate in the best interests of the community.
Insolvency regime. Insolvency refers to the inability of a person or an entity to pay its debt as they fall due. There are two aspects from which insolvency can be defined. First, the flow liquidity. Second, asset insolvency. So companies facing the insolvency can take measures to keep themselves financially afloat at least. So insolvency does not necessarily lead back to bankruptcy, but all bankrupt companies are also considered insolvent. Insolvency regimes are legal frameworks that govern how financially distressed companies or individuals manage their debt when they are unable to meet their financial obligations. Consequence of insolvency. The main heart of modern insolvency legislation and debt restructuring practices is no longer an easiest solution, which is liquidation and the consequent elimination of insolvent entities. Insolvency law and business rehabilitation. The Philippine Insolvency Law, which was enacted in 1909, has three principal subjects. First, suspension of payments. Second, voluntary insolvency. Last is involuntary insolvency. Features of insolvency law: rehabilitative and distributive. Insolvency law, distributive, refers to the process of distributing the assets of an insolvent individual or company among its creditors in fair and equitable manner. This means that the assets are divided proportionally among creditors based on the amount of their claims. On the other hand, rehabilitative refers to the goal of insolvency proceeding rehabilitate the insolvent individual or company and allow them to continue operating as going concern. This may involve restructuring their debts, implementing new management practices, or other measures to help them recover financially and become solvent again. Rehabilitation is often seen as more beneficial outcome than liquidation, as it allows the debtor to continue their business operation and repay their debt over time. Rehabilitation law or the process. Distributive, as amended, which contain the following process. First, stay order. Second, adequate protection. Third, rehabilitation receiver. Fourth, equality is equity principle. And fifth, is crammed down.
Proposed Corporate Recovery and Insolvency Act. There are several laws pending with the Philippine Congress to update the antiquated insolvency law regime. The proposed Corporate Recovery Act expressly categorized different forms if debt relief available to corporate debtor in financial distress. First is the suspension of payment. This is limited remedy provides a company with a moratorium on debt payments while it negotiates an out-of-court arrangement with its creditors. Next is the fast-track rehabilitation. This is the default relief under the proposed legislation. A debtor is limited to this remedy unless first, it has initiated a pre-negotiated rehabilitation proceeding. Next is the debtor. If the debtor is a non-stock corporation or partnership and a majority of creditors have requested conversion of the proceeding to court-supervised rehabilitation proceedings. Third is the court-supervised rehabilitation. This is the counterpart of the rehabilitation proceedings under the present regime. Unlike the present rehabilitation process, which is the court-driven, the CRA-IA makes court-supervised rehabilitation creditor-driven. Now let's proceed to pre-negotiated rehabilitation. It is the process allows for summary judicial proceedings for debtor seeking ratification of a rehabilitation that was approved by a majority of the creditors before sought relief from the court. And lastly is the dissolution and liquidation. This is the final resort under the legislation. The proposed law calls for the appointment of a liquidator and formulation of the liquidation plan.
Openness to end restriction upon foreign investment. The government of the Philippines or GPH actively seeks foreign investment to promote economic development. Certain industries have experienced growth in recent years, especially those that leverage educated English-speaking Philippine labor. This statement highlights how the Philippine government actively encourages foreign investment to spur economic growth. It points out that industries benefiting from educated English-speaking Filipino workers have seen significant development recent years. Philippine law generally treats foreign investors the same as their domestic counterparts, with important exceptions outlined in the Foreign Investment Act. So suggests that under Philippine law, foreign investors are typically afforded the same treatment as local investors. There are specific provisions and regulation outlined in the Foreign Investment Act that might differ for foreign investors. So the last is the Philippines limits foreign ownership for reasons of national security, defense, and public health. This statement implies that the Philippines imposes restrictions on foreign ownership in certain sectors, such as national security, defense, and public health, to safeguard key aspects of the country's interests and well-being. So next topic is FDI and regional production networks. Participation in regional or global production networks provide domestic firms not only access to export markets but to newer technologies as well. Suggests that by participating in regional or global production networks, domestic firms gain access not only to export markets but also to new technologies which can enhance their competitiveness and growth prospects. So next topic is FDI and regional production networks. Participation in regional or global production networks provide domestic firms not only access to export markets but to newer technologies as well. Suggests that by participating in regional or global production networks, domestic firms gain access not only to export markets but also to new technologies which can enhance their competitiveness and growth prospects. So last, the Philippines is host to affiliates of foreign automakers and electronics companies and has participates in their production network. This statement indicates that the Philippines hosts subsidiaries of foreign automakers and electronics companies and actively participates in their production network. This involvement likely includes manufacturing components or assembling products for these companies, contributing to the country's industrial development and integration into global supply chain.
And now let's proceed with the assessment of FDI spillover effects. There is no evidence that productivity of employment is spillovers take place between foreign and domestic firms either through backward linkages or forward linkages. So this statement suggests that there is no proof indication that foreign and domestic firms benefit from each other terms of productivity or employment spillovers. So this includes both backward linkages, which refer to relationships between a company and its supplier, and forward linkages, which involve connection with customer and distributions. Policy recommendations. The experience of Philippines show that FDI spillover effects are not automatically generated. So the statement suggests that simply having foreign direct investments or FDI in country like the Philippines does not guarantee positive spillover effects on local economy. In other words, the benefits of it, such as increased productivity or employment opportunities, so do not automatically transfer to domestic firms, and this highlights the importance of strategic policies and efforts to maximize the positive impact of FDI on host countries' economy.
So here are the following policy recommendations to deepen the firm's linkages within the economy and improve the competitiveness of domestic parts and suppliers. So first policy recommendation is the human resource development and training. So human resource development and training are essential to thrive in today's competitive business landscape. So by implementing human resource development and training, the government can raise the capabilities of firms and upgrade labor skills. Implementing human resource development and training is important for the government and organizations to stay ahead and achieve long-term success. Second policy recommendation is the industrial technology upgrading. For the Philippines to move up the technology scale, the design and development skills, as well as the country's technological capabilities, must be improved. Implementing industrial technology upgrading will not only boost productivity but also position businesses for long-term success in an increasingly digital and automated world. Third is SME finance support programs. So in the country, the lack of access to financing has severely constrained the growth of small and mid-sized enterprises. However, this was overcome by the private banks in ways like assisting in preparing accounting records, business advice, simplifying loan documentation, and tailoring fitting loans to match the borrower's cash flow. Fourth policy recommendation is linkages improvement and promotion of subcontracting and outsourcing activities. To make strategic linkages with multinational corporations, it is important to develop a program to provide information exchange to local firms. linkages improvement, and promotion of subcontracting and outsourcing activities is a strategic initiative that aims to enhance collaboration and efficiency among businesses by fostering strong connections and promoting the outsourcing of specialized tasks. By encouraging partnerships and streamlining processes, this initiative empowers organizations to support each other's strengths and drive mutual growth in a fast evolving business landscape. Fifth is improvement of infrastructure and logistics and overall investment climate. In order to boost economic growth and attract more investments, it is important to prioritize the improvement of infrastructure and logistics and the country's overall investment climate. So by enhancing transportation networks, upgrading facilities, and streamlining supply chains, businesses can operate more efficiently and effectively, creating a favorable investment climate that fosters economic development and prosperity. Sixth is capacity building and adequate funding for the Department of Trade and Industry and the Board of Investments Competitiveness and Linkages Program. So the Department of Trade and Industry and the Board of Investments Competitiveness and Linkages Program can greatly benefit from recommending capacity building and adequate funding. By investing in training and development initiatives and providing sufficient financial resources, the program can enhance its ability to foster competitiveness, strengthen linkages, and drive economic growth in the country. Seventh is conversion and transfer policies. Conversion and transfer policies are essential for promoting economic growth and attracting foreign investment. By implementing transparent and efficient policies, countries can create a favorable business environment, encourage capital inflows, and facilitate the smooth conversion and transfer of funds, ultimately driving economic development. Eighth is expropriation and compensation. Expropriation and compensation are complex issues that require careful consideration. While expropriation may be necessary for public interest or development projects, it is crucial to ensure fair and just compensation to affected individuals or communities in order to mitigate the impact and uphold their rights. Lastly, is dispute settlement. It is in Dispute settlement rather is a crucial process that helps parties resolve conflicts and reach mutually beneficial agreements. By providing a fair and impartial platform for negotiation and mediation, dispute settlement promotes harmony and fosters peaceful resolutions in various contexts, from legal disputes to international conflicts.
Performance requirements and incentives. Performance requirements are established by the BOI for investors who are granted in incentives and are usually based on the approved project proposal. Performance requirements refers to the specific criteria or targets that investors must meet in order to receive incentives by the Board of Investments. So these requirements are typically outlined in the approved project proposal submitted by the investor and are meant to ensure the investment will bring tangible benefits to the host country's economy. So by setting performance requirements, the BOI can monitor progress of the investments and hold the investor accountable for delivering on their promises. And also, this helps to safeguard the interest of the host country and maximize the positive impact of foreign direct investments. Let's proceed with the incentives. incentives granted by the BOI often depend on action by other agencies such as Department of Finance and including its Bureau of Customs. So incentives granted by the BOI, and it is often contingent on action taken by the agencies, so such as finance and including the Bureau of Customs.
Hello everyone, my name is Antoinette Lisa Baybay, and let's proceed to the next discussion. Right to ownership and establishment. Philippine law recognizes the private right to acquire and dispose of property or business interests, subject to foreign nationality caps specified in Philippine Constitution and other laws. Some sectors are closed to private enterprise, usually for reasons of security, health, and public morals. For instance, the Philippine government runs or licenses all casinos through the Philippine Amusement or Gaming Corporation and manages lottery activities through the Philippine Charity Sweepstakes. In general, only the state-owned GSIS can ensure government interests. Next, protection of property of rights. The Intellectual Property Code provides a legal framework for intellectual property rights protections in the Philippines, especially in the key areas of patents, trademarks, and copyright. The Philippines has created procedures for registering property claims, but the judicial system continues to cause delays and uncertainty. The Philippines is particularly concerned about the difficulty of protecting intellectual property rights, for which the country is on the United States Trade Representative Special 301 watch list. Transparency of regulatory system. Philippine national agencies are required by law to develop regulations via a public consultation process, often involving public hearings. From the enforcement side, however, regulatory activity is frequently weak, inconsistent, and unpredictable. Regulatory agencies in the Philippines tend to be not legally independent, but rather affiliated to cabinet departments or the President's office, making them at risk of political pressure.
Efficient capital markets and portfolio investment. The Philippines is generally open to foreign portfolio capital investments. Non-residents may purchase domestically issued security and invest in equities and money market instruments. Next is the Philippine Stock Exchange. Membership in the Philippine Stock Exchange or PSE is open to foreign-controlled stock brokerage incorporated under Philippine law. Next is the banking. The banking law of 2000 paved the way for the Philippine banking system to face in internationally accepted risk-based capital adequacy standards.
What is anti-money laundering and information exchange? The Paris-based Financial Action Task Force continues to monitor implementation of the Philippine Anti-Money Laundering Act through the Anti-Money Laundering Council. So what is anti-money laundering and information exchange? Anti-money laundering aims to stop criminals from hiding illegally obtained money. Information exchange between financial institutions and authorities helps track suspicious activity and identify money laundering schemes. So next, what is accounting standards? In 2005, the Philippines started to fully adapt the Philippine Financial Reporting Standards, patterned after the International Financial Reporting Standards issued by the International Accounting Standards Board. Accounting standards are guidelines companies follow to prepare financial statements. This ensures consistency and transparency, allowing investors and creditors to compare companies fairly. So next is outward investments. Foreign exchange earnings and divestment proceeds from outward investments that were funded with foreign exchange purchase from banks or their subsidiary or affiliate. Foreign exchange corporations are not required to be inwardly remitted and sold for pesos. So what is outward investments? Outward investments are when a company or individual puts money into businesses or assets located in another country. This can be a way to expand their reach, access new markets, or find better returns on their investment. Competition from state-owned enterprises. Private and state-owned enterprises generally compete equally with some clear exceptions. State-owned enterprises are businesses controlled by a government. Competition from state-owned enterprises arises when the businesses compete with private companies, potentially having an unfair advantage due to government backing. Next is corporate social responsibility. It constitutes a basic aspect of significant business operations in the Philippines. Many CSR programs focus on poverty alleviation efforts, promoting of the environment, health initiatives, and education. Corporate social responsibility or CSR is a business concept where companies try to operate in ways that benefit society and the environment while still making a profit. This can involve things like using less energy, treating workers fairly, and giving back to the community. Next is political violence. Terrorist groups and criminal gangs operate in some regions of the country. Arbitrary, unlawful, and extrajudicial killings by national, provincial, and local governments actors continue to be a serious problem. Political violence is any use of force or intimidation to achieve political aims. This can involve states using violence against their own people or other countries, or non-state actors like rebels or terrorists using violence to influence governments.
A Wondrous Day Ahead. I am Arian Golchano, and now we are moving forward to the Chronicle of Corruption. It is a pervasive and long-standing problem in the Philippines, and as we all notice, it has never been a never-ending cycle or never-ending issue that's happening within the cycle or within the system of Philippine government. It was still ranked as the most problematic factor for doing business in the 2012 to 2013 Global Competitiveness Report. I believe, in accordance to this corruption problem, the government should conduct transparency in their platforms, especially those politicians that revolves around the sphere or that revolves around the system of the politics. You know, it's very important to be transparent and to communicate with the executives as much as possible to the community itself because they all have the rights to know the budget breakdowns and also the financial statements that's happening within the operation cycle. Hindi kasi pwede na hindi tayo maging transparent. Hindi naman sa hindi pwede, but as much as possible, you as a leader, you know or you should know how to evaluate or how to be transparent and also, you know, um, you know how to transact your finance and budgets para hindi magkaroon ng fraudulent statements, hindi magkaroon ng mga questions kung saan napunta ang budget. Kasi when it comes to budget and finance, it is a massive force of conversation to talk through about it. And especially if you are dealing in such a major community system. For me, I believe the very solution for this one is to be transparent. This is to prevent any malpractice and any forms of corruption happening within the Philippines because it has never been it does never be an ending cycle. Next, we have the bilateral investment agreements. As of 2012, the Philippines had signed bilateral investment agreements with 40 countries. The Philippines does not have a bilateral agreement with the United States. So dito, meron tayong 14 countries na, gina-consider. And according sa ating material, as of 2012 nga raw, we have the Argentina, we have the Australia, the Austria, the Bahrain, Bangladesh, Belgium, Luxembourg, Burma, Cambodia, Canada, Chile, China, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Equatorial Guinea, Finland, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Iran, Italy, Japan, Republic of Korea, Kuwait, Laos, Magnolia, Netherlands, Pakistan, Portugal, Romania, Russian Federation, Spain, Sweden. We have also the Switzerland, Syria, Taiwan, Thailand, Turkey, United Kingdom, and Vietnam. So according to this, it has four regional free trade agreements that include an investment chapter, ASEAN Comprehensive Investment Agreement. We have ASEAN Australia New Zealand Free Trade Agreement. We have also the Agreement on Investor under the Framework Agreement on Comprehensive Economic Cooperation among governments of ASEAN and Republic of Korea. And not to mention the Agreement on Investment under the Framework Agreement on Comprehensive Economic Cooperation among governments of ASEAN and China. I think we should be noted to the fact that the Philippines does not have a bilateral investment agreement with the United States. Next, let's move on to the Taxes Bilateral Tax Treaty. The Philippines has a treaty with the United States for the purposes of avoiding double taxation. Ano nga ba ang double taxation? Based on my accumulation na pinag-aralan ko sa taxation or income taxation subject, ang double taxation, ito yung pagbayad natin ng, kumbaga, it's levying towards paying taxes in a double manner. Example, nakapagbayad tayo ng tax in the same manner, in the same asset, in the same, in the same purpose. So that concludes you are paying or you are undergoing sa double taxation. Take for example, I pay for my insurance taxes, and then the use for that one is for my insurance safe or insurance purposes, and then like nakapagbayad na ako doon through cash, and then like it happened also na nagbayad ako through cards or through e-cash or GCash, ganyan, something like that. So that considers as double taxation. Siguro one of the convenient examples na mabibigay ko is something about or that revolves around the concept of the eminent domain. Pag sinabi kasi nating eminent domain, meron tayong concept dyan na halimbawa yung isang area or yung isang lupa or property is pagmamay-ari mo, but then like ginamit siya ng government because the government has the power to to grab that area or property to you, since it's gonna be using for the public purposes. As long as for the public purposes, that's okay, and the government has the right regardless if you own the property, pero babayaran ka nila, but then ikaw babayad ka ng tax when it comes to that through cash, pero ang purpose is para para maka-help sa government in formulating or in building the establishment. Pero kapag nakabayad ka ng ganun if nakabayad ka ng ganun, the purpose of doing that for the helping a foundation of establishment, and then you also did it again in a different way but in the same purpose, that's also a double tax, that's considered as double taxation. So continue providing procedures for resolving interpretative disputes and enforcing taxes of both countries. So in line with that, the treaty also encourages bilateral trade and investments by allowing the exchange of capital, goods, and services under clearly defined tax rules, and in some cases, preferential tax rates or tax exemptions. Okay, siguro dagdag ko lang din. Pursuant to the most favored nation clause in the Philippine-United States Tax Treaty, U.S. recipients of royalty income quality for the preferential rate provided in the Philippine-United Arab Emirates Tax Treaty. Accordingly daw, meron tayong 10% tax rate applies with respect to most royalties. And 15% naman tax applies on the remittance of profits by Philippine branches of U.S. companies to their head officers or offices rather, and dividends remitted by Philippine subsidiaries of U.S. companies to their to the, by their parent companies. Moving on, now we have the OPIC and other investment insurance programs. It's very vital to note that the Philippine government currently does not provide guarantees against losses due to inconvertibility of currency or damage caused by war. So, ito, yung Philippines, as we all know, it's a third world country. So, we don't have that much insurance as a backup para to arm us, knowing na even yung armed forces natin is not that, is not that sufficient enough to protect us, since it's, knowing Philippines is not that rich and not that wealth wealthy country. So it's very given na kapag pagdating sa mga ganitong klaseng bagay or ganitong klaseng war or like sakuna or events, we are not secured enough. The Philippine Labor, sorry, the Overseas Private Investment Corporation (OPIC) can provide U.S. investors with the political risk insurance against risk of expropriation, inconvertibility and transfer, and political violence pursuant to the U.S. Philippines Investment Incentive Agreement that enables UPIC to support investment in the country. And in line with that, we have to remember that the Philippines is a member of the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. Now moving on doon sa labor. Managers of US-based companies widely report that Philippine labor is relatively low cost and motivated. In addition, the Philippine labor force possesses strong English language skills. As an enthusiast and a resident of Philippines, I must say that this is true. As a student, we are forced, not forced, but we are obliged to to learn English as a medium. I think there's no problem with that at all, since that English is a international language. It's a universal language that we all use whenever um, you know, we traverse transaction, especially outside our nation. I don't think any problem with that at all. The problem here is that if you don't know how to speak in English within the Philippines, you are underprivileged and you are undermotivated. I think that we should not discourage the labor force of the Philippines. Instead, we have to implement training and workshops so that every single employees, um, you know, aspiring employees that are really compassionate to work, are have the gradual chance or increasing gradual chance to enter to their fields, to their kasi sayang yung skills, sayang yung capabilities na ma-offer nila, yung aptitudes na meron sila, if you are not giving them the benefit of the doubt or like the chance to learn to something. Kasi hindi naman natin talaga first language yung English. So that we have to be, mindful that at the same time, it's not about the language. Although it's something na matutunan talaga natin. Next. As of October 2012, the Philippine labor force was estimated at 40.4 million with an unemployment rate at 7%. Yes, this is true. The unemployment rate in the Philippines has always been a never-ending narrative. Kasi, it's lacking of job here. Since the demand requirements here in the Philippines are also high. That looks very unfair for the majority of aspiring employees or workers in general. This figure includes employment in the informal sector and does not capture the substantial underemployment in the country. That's very true. Multinational managers report that total compensation packages tend to be comparable with those in neighboring countries. In the call center industry, the average labor cost is between 2.22 US dollars and 3.74 US dollars per hour. So I think that's very underprivileged for the many. But what can you expect to the Philippine government? It's something na hindi talaga nagbabago unless we are forced or we are acknowledging our parts as well na mag-elect ng better politicians or better government officials. During the reporting period, the non-agricultural daily minimum wage in the National Capital Region is 446 pesos approximately. So, literacy, as what I've said earlier, in both English and Filipino is relatively high. Although there have been concerns in the business and education communities that English proficiency was on decline. I think, hindi naman siya problema. The problem is us. Kasi it's in our part na matuto dapat talaga magkipag-communicate regardless of the language. I don't think the language must be the high requirement in this one. I think the command, the authority to speak, to communicate, since you're in the business field, and it's very important for you to have the authority to command, the eloquence to speak. So how could you tend to, you know, how could you tend to like transact, to negotiate in the market? As an inspiring business enthusiast as well in the future, I think we must know how to acknowledge this point. Now let's move on to the foreign trade zones. Free ports. Enterprises enjoy preferential tax treatment when located in export processing zones, free trade zones, and certain industrial estates, collectively known as economic zones or ecozones. Enterprises located in ecozones are considered to be outside the customs territory and are allowed to import capital equipment and raw material free from zones may be stored, repacked, mixed, or otherwise manipulated. So I think that's all for my part. Now let's move on to the next reporter. Thank you so much.
Next, Philippine Economic Zone Authority. There are 273 operating ecozones in PEZA, composed primarily of manufacturing, IT parks and centers, tourism, medical tourism parks, and agro-industrial ecozones. PECA supervises three government-owned export processing zones and provides incentives to enterprises in the remaining 270 privately owned and run ecozones. PEZA administrators have built a reputation for creating a transparent and predictable investment environment inside their zones of authority. Bases Conversion Development Authority. The ecozones located inside former U.S. military bases are independent of PEZA and subject to the Bases Conversion and Development Authority. These ecozones provide incentives similar to those offered by PEZA.
For other zones, the Fibidac Industrial Estate, located in Misamis Oriental, Mindanao, is governed by Fibidac Industrial Authority, a government-owned and controlled corporation. Additionally, the two lesser-known ecozones are the Zamboanga City Economic Zone and Freeport, located in Zamboanga City, Mindanao, and the Cagayan Special Economic Zone and Freeport, located in Santa Ana, Cagayan Province. The incentives available to investors in these zones are very similar to the Philippine Economic Zone Authority incentives, but they are administered independently. Moreover, the Cagayan Economic Zone Authority is authorized by the law to grant gaming licenses. Next, talking about foreign direct investment statistics, the Philippine Securities and Exchange Commission, Board of Investment, National Economic and Development Authority, as well as the Central Bank generate direct investment statistics. The SEC, BOI, and NEDA are responsible for recording investment approvals. In addition, the Central Bank, whose data are widely used as a reliable indicator of foreign investment stock and foreign investment flows, is responsible for recording actual investments based on the balance of payments methodology readily available in US dollar terms.
So on top of that, foreign direct investment can encapsulate benefit host nations greatly by, fostering economic expansion, creating new jobs, and transferring knowledge. In line with that, it also presents difficulties, also the drawbacks, such as the possibility of losing power, rivalry of resources, and susceptibility to global economic trends. So, with my very take as one of the reporters, FDI benefits and drawbacks must be or must have a certain balance if sustainable economic growth and national sovereignty are to be attained. So that's for the whole chapter or for the whole version of the chronicle of this chapter 9 that talks about the foreign direct investment. Again, a wondrous day ahead.